Hey, what's up guys? I'm 𝗪cie_𝗰𝗶𝗹, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about my biggest financial losses as an Amazon FBA seller. A lot of FBA sellers will just talk about their sales and maybe their profit and not really talk about the losses. So I do around 50K in sales every single month, but in this video, we're going to talk a lot more about the losses and the mistakes. So we're gonna do it from a lowest to highest order. So the least losses are gonna be first, and then we're gonna go up to the crazy big losses at the end. So the first loss would be using an accountant and bookkeeping service that I ended up really disliking. So basically last year I wanted to use a service that would help do my numbers, and basically rectifying a year's worth of numbers, and then the monthly subscription was a lot of money. So in total it ended up being $2,500, and I ended up just not liking it. They basically needed me to do a lot of stuff that was time consuming. Like they were back and forth on emails with me trying to get credit card statements. I had like 8 different credit cards at the time, and it was just a pain in the neck. So I just canceled it, and that ended up being a loss. Another thing I don't mention in this video is the opportunity cost. I'm really only talking about actual dollar amount losses. So some of the opportunity costs would have not getting started with Amazon earlier, not getting started with online arbitrage earlier, potentially not using some credit earlier once I knew what I was doing, although I probably shouldn't have started using credit any earlier, and not reselling earlier. And then potentially could get into the whole like, was going to school worth it, etc., etc. I think I did grow as a person a lot, and it helped me discover what I wanted to do with my life. But in this video, I'm mostly just talking about the actual dollar amount losses. So the next biggest loss was in crypto. I bought some ICP in late 21 for around $3,000 total. It was around $40 each, and now it's around $4 each. So I haven't sold yet, and at this point it's like, if it goes up, awesome. If I sell now, like, why even take my $300? Estimated total loss of $2,700. Big mistake there. The next loss was early last year in 2022. I was trying to scale pretty hard on credit, and instead of slowing down the spend when I was low on cash or getting another card, I decided to use Payability. And so Payability is basically a service where you can get your money after the sales happen instead of waiting that 2 weeks. But they charge really exorbitant fees. So they say that they charge 2%, but it ends up being more for some reason, some like fine print type thing. And when you're doing a lot of sales, even 2% would be a lot of money to just like straight lose. And it's not 2% of profit, it's 2% of sales, which is a big deal. So over the course of a couple months before I canceled it, I ended up losing around $3,000. All right, guys, we're getting up into the $5,000 loss range, and stick around to the end because we have some absolutely magnificent losses at the end of this. The next loss is I was selling used items on Amazon in used acceptable condition, and basically I was selling them without all the components, and I was selling them in used acceptable condition, and I was also targeting stuff that had really low supply. And so at the time on Amazon, the prices were really inflated, and I was trying to sell used items at like 70 to 90% of new item value. And in some cases that actually worked, which is pretty cool. But then in other cases, it just completely didn't work. And then I started getting tons of returns. And so I had the item sent back to me, and I liquidated on eBay, and that did not go well. And so over the course of a year, I probably lost around $5,000 on these types of items. So highly would not recommend. So those of you guys who have been around for a long time knew this one was coming, and hopefully none of you guys were also involved in this, but I got TIGERLILY.
So TIGERLILY was a prep center. I mean, I think they still are, honestly, and they could be good by now, but I would strongly not recommend. I was using them in 2022 at the beginning of the year. They were good for several months. Overall, things were going pretty good. And then just out of nowhere, they just like clicked out, like would not respond to emails, would not send anything out. Eventually I stopped sending to them, but I still had around $13,000 of inventory just sitting at TIGERLILY for around 2.5 months. Several of us made police reports, but like rectifying all the receipts and actually starting a lawsuit was going to be too big of an effort, and we didn't necessarily actually even have in writing the agreement that she was going to send our stuff. It was just a big nightmare. Eventually she did send a lot of my stuff back to me so that I could list it, but she didn't send all of it, and I ended up losing around $5,400 of buy cost in inventory. That was a big pain in the neck. And if you're using a prep center, you know, in the end, it was worth it. Like, there's no way I could have made as much money as I did last year and this year without a prep center. And so a loss like that sounds terrible, but in the end was worth it. Definitely get recommendations from friends. Try to not use a prep center that everybody knows about. Like, if you start to see all of your friends and all the people that you know starting to use a prep center, definitely like get out of there, honestly. That's a lesson from that one. Don't use a prep center that everyone else is using. So the second biggest loss that I've had was from the returns on used items. So like I said before, in a lot of 2022, I was selling used items, and most of the time I was sending items to a prep center without having tested them. They weren't testing them. Sometimes they would get broken and they would still end up just getting sent to the customer, and there were a ton of returns because of this. And when I say a lot of returns, it wasn't $100 here, $40 here, $50 here. No, in 2022, I did $694,000 of sales and $177,000 of returns in 2022. And most of that was on used items. So that's around a 25% return rate. And a lot of those items, I did end up getting to just have them relisted in my inventory, and eventually they did sell. But on all of those, there's going to be return fees. Even if it gets put straight back into your inventory, there's the cash flow on that, which is a huge opportunity cost because items are just getting sold and getting the money back to me slower. And so there's opportunity cost on that. And then also some of these items are going to be deemed unfulfillable by Amazon. And so you have to have them removal ordered back to yourself to be reprocessed and either sold on Amazon again or sold on eBay as liquidation. So on this one, the estimated total loss, I really have no clue what the actual total loss on that is. It's a ton of money. I think it's still less than the last one, but the opportunity cost on this one is nuts because some of these items were getting purchased, returned, and then purchased again and returned, getting feed on every single one, and the opportunity cost on that is nuts. And then I'd sometimes have to removal order something like that, and then it would be broken and fall into the category that we talked about before. Just massive amount of loss on that one. And I did have this loss before 2022, but this loss got exacerbated as I started to scale more and more, and as I started using a prep center. And although it's worth doing the additions to use a prep center, it is just a cost that you're gonna have a lot more things slip through the cracks. And so the loss that I'm talking about is items getting broken or items getting lost. And I'm just putting both of those into the same category because they're pretty similar problems. So when I purchase stuff online, because my main business model is online arbitrage, there are times, a very small percentage of the time, but there are times that I don't receive the item that I purchased, and there's still a tracking number that shows that it was delivered, but somehow it didn't get delivered. Maybe the seller put a fake tracking number, maybe something got stolen, maybe something just slipped through the cracks somewhere, and I just don't receive the item that I purchased. And then there's other times where I purchase an item, we list it on Amazon, everything's going great. Maybe someone purchases it and then there's a return, and then you see that it's unfulfillable. So you have it sent back to yourself and the item's completely broken, and you paid $190 for that item and it's just completely trashed. Like, you can't even liquidate it for parts on eBay. So this was a bigger problem when I was selling used items in 2022. Just stuff would break more often. Sometimes I would just be able to sell it in a lower condition and still make some money on it. or lose less money on it. But then other times it's just a complete loss and you purchased an expensive item and it's just a complete loss. Your other profits had to make up for the loss that you had. Or now I sell mostly new items, and sometimes items are opened and I can't sell them as new anymore, and so you have to sell them as used. And then there's other times where like they're actually just completely broken. This at scale, like I said, I do anywhere from 400,000 to 700,000 in sales every single year on Amazon. Just at some scale, there's just going to be losses like this, and the idea is that these losses are small in comparison to the profit that I'm making, and that has been the case. But there's a lot of these losses, like items getting broken or items getting lost, that when you add them up, it's a lot of money. Thankfully, it doesn't all happen at once. It happens slowly over the course of every single month. And so it's like, oh, well, I lost $600 this month because items were broken, or I lost $1,300 this month because items were broken. But Inventory Lab shows that I made $15,000 profit, and that $1,200 loss is acceptable, frustrating, but like, what can you do about it? So all in all, those are all of the losses that I have had so far in my Amazon FBA journey. Like I said, selling on Amazon is not all rainbows and butterflies and super perfect and smooth. When you're gonna try to make money, there's often gonna be situations where you have to lose money. Then you end up making more. Like, you don't want to trip over the dollars, stopping yourself from making hundreds of dollars. So this is all the losses that I have had. If this was helpful to get a real picture of what's going on when you're selling on Amazon, feel free to subscribe down below. I also do have a free Discord group where you can ask questions, get some of the benefits to me having made these mistakes instead of potentially you making the mistakes. So with that, thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye-bye.